I have been married to my husband for 3 years, and I'm at my wit's end with his poker nights and childcare expectations. I've been keeping my resentment to myself for months, and I think I'm about to lose it. Some background. Sorry if this gets long. When Dave and I got married, I knew I was signing up to be a stepmom to his 2 sons, Jason and Ethan. I've tried my best with them, but it's not been easy. During the school year, we have a custody arrangement that works pretty well. The boys stay with their mom on weekdays and with us on alternate weekends. This has been fine because I work as a hospital administrator with unpredictable hours, and Dave said we'd handle parenting as a team. Dave has this poker night routine with his buddies that's been going on since before we met. Every Monday and Tuesday, he drives 40 minutes to his friend's place near his old workplace. Kyle plays poker until late and then stays overnight. He says driving back that late wouldn't be safe, but it wasn't an issue because we didn't have the boys on those nights anyway. Last night, I was at the kitchen table reviewing the summer custody paperwork and realized that during summer break, the boys will be with us Monday through Wednesday every week, directly conflicting with Dave's poker nights. When Dave came home from work, I pointed this out, thinking we needed to discuss it. His response surprised me. He shrugged and said he'd still go on Tuesdays since the boys are old enough to care for themselves. I thought, is he serious? They barely listen to me even when he's around. I explained my concerns about handling both boys alone. They fight over the PlayStation controller, and they rarely follow my instructions when Dave isn't present. They treat me like I'm invisible half the time. Dave dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting and that they're good kids. They just need a firm hand. I reminded him about what happened last month when I was alone with the boys for 3 hours. Despite my warnings not to play baseball inside the house, they broke our neighbor's window with a fly ball that went through our window first. The neighbor was upset, and Dave didn't answer his phone, so I handled it myself. When I brought this up, Dave laughed and said it was normal behavior. Then he told me I needed to step up in my role as their stepmother, especially with summer approaching. I held back from saying something I'd regret. I mentioned that I sometimes have work-on-call responsibilities that can't be rescheduled, and what would happen if I got called in while alone with the boys. Dave got irritated and asked why I was making such a big deal out of 1 night a week. 1 night? It's 2 nights, which is the majority of the time we'll have them. His tone got increasingly dismissive throughout our conversation. He eventually accused me of looking for excuses to avoid spending time with his sons, asking why I married a man with children if I didn't want to parent them. That hurt because I've genuinely tried to build a relationship with these kids for 3 years now. After our argument, I retreated to the spare bedroom to think and avoid saying something I might regret. I've been reflecting on our relationship, and I realized that Dave has been shifting more parenting responsibilities to me while keeping his social life unchanged. When we got married, he promised we'd approach parenting as a team, but now I feel abandoned to handle difficult situations alone. I keep wondering if I'm being unreasonable here. Maybe this is what stepmothering is supposed to be like, but I think this isn't right. I'm not asking him to give up poker entirely, just to be present when his children are here, since they don't respect my authority. What bothers me is how easily Dave dismissed my concerns. He didn't even consider compromising, like going to poker once a week instead of twice, or coming home the same night when the boys are here. His poker nights are non-negotiable, but my concerns are flexible. Summer break starts in 2 weeks, and Dave seems unwilling to change his poker nights. I'm dreading managing the boys by myself while he's with his friends. The boys are good kids, but they're at an age where they test boundaries, and they know how to get a reaction from me. If anything goes wrong while Dave is away, like the window incident, he'll make it seem like it's my fault for not handling it better. I have no good options. I haven't told anyone else how overwhelmed I feel. My friends don't have kids or have never been stepmoms, so they don't get it. Dave's family would take his side, and I don't want to come across as someone trying to come between a father and his kids. I love Dave, I really do, but I'm starting to resent him for putting me in this position. I want to be a good stepmom to his boys, but I also need support and understanding from my husband. Is that too much to ask? So Reddit, am I being unreasonable here? How do I get Dave to understand that this isn't about me not wanting to parent his kids, but about feeling unsupported and set up to fail? Any advice from other step-parents out there would be really appreciated. Now for the first update. Update: husband's poker nights versus step-parenting. The real mother. Comment: I honestly didn't think my post about my husband's poker nights conflicting with our summer custody schedule would get much attention, but the response has been overwhelming. Here's what's happened since I last posted. First, thank you to everyone who commented and offered advice. Reading your responses made me feel validated that I wasn't just being dramatic or unreasonable, which is how Dave has been making me feel lately. Many of you suggested having a serious conversation with Dave about our parenting expectations in our blended family, which is exactly what I tried to do the day after my post. I talked with him after dinner and suggested some compromises, like him coming home on poker nights when we have the boys instead of staying over, or limiting poker to once a week during summer break. I even offered to drive out and pick him up if he didn't want to drive late, which would still get him home before the boys wake up. He reluctantly said he'd think about it. But when I brought up how unfairly the parenting workload seemed to be distributed, he got defensive and said I was keeping score in our marriage. That conversation was 2 days ago, and the issue is still unresolved. Summer break starts next week, and Dave is still planning to attend poker night during our first week with the boys. I was starting to question if I was being unreasonable, thanks to those of you who validated that I'm not being unreasonable here. For those asking about my work situation in the comments, I'm a hospital administrator and recently accepted a promotion with more responsibility. Dave was supportive when I took it, but now it seems like he's forgotten. My job involves evening work and on-call shifts that can't be rescheduled. I've always been upfront about this. Then yesterday, my phone rang at work. It was Dave, calling to say he'd already left for poker night and forgot to tell me that Jason has a summer school orientation tomorrow morning that someone needs to take him to. This orientation is for a special STEM program Jason qualified for, and attendance is mandatory. I explained as calmly as possible that I had an important budget meeting tomorrow that I couldn't miss. I've been preparing for weeks, and my department is depending on me to present our funding requests to hospital leadership. His response? A heavy sigh. Then, can't you reschedule? This is important for Jason's future. I pointed out that he'd known about this orientation for weeks. It was on our shared calendar that he never checks, and only remembered after he'd left for poker night. He said he'd been busy with work, and it slipped his mind. Then he asked why I couldn't be more flexible, adding that real mothers make sacrifices for their children. I went silent. Several of you predicted he might pull the "you're not their real mom" card, and you were correct. I've spent 3 years trying to be a good stepmom to these boys. I've attended their school events, helped with homework, cooked meals, and tried to build a relationship with them. To have that dismissed with one comment was devastating. I told him I'd figure something out for Jason, but that we needed a serious conversation when he got back. Looking back, I should have been firmer, but I was at work and didn't want to cause a scene. After we hung up, he texted saying he'd stay at his friend's place since it's already late. It was 8 p.m. The drive is 40 minutes. To answer those who asked in comments, yes, he's always stayed overnight on poker nights, claiming it's too dangerous to drive back late, but now I'm questioning that excuse. When I got home, the boys were playing video games past their bedtime and hadn't done Jason's summer school homework. I tried to get them to bed, explaining that Jason had an early morning for orientation. Ethan ignored me and kept playing. Jason said, "You're not my real mom. I don't have to listen to you," when I asked him to turn off the game and get ready for bed. For those asking about the boys' ages and behavior, Jason is 14 and Ethan is 12. And yes, this happens when Dave isn't around. They know how to push my buttons, and Dave has never backed me up on discipline. After I finally got them settled, I locked myself in the bathroom and broke down crying. I felt overwhelmed and hurt by both Dave's dismissiveness and Jason's comment. I keep wondering if I'm asking for too much here or if this is just what stepmothering is like. Part of me understands that being a teenager is hard with divorced parents, but another part feels like Dave has enabled this disrespect by never reinforcing my role in the family. I ended up rescheduling my work meeting at professional inconvenience. My boss was understanding, but not happy, and I know this will affect how my team sees me. This is the third time in 2 months I've had to make last-minute changes because of Dave's parenting choices. But I knew Dave wouldn't be back in time for Jason's orientation. The orientation was tense. Jason barely spoke to me on the drive and moved away from me when we arrived. When the teacher asked if I was his mom, he said, "She's my stepmom," in a tone that felt dismissive. I signed the paperwork and made sure he had everything he needed. On the way home, I tried to talk about the program, but he put in his earbuds and stared out the window. I'm realizing this pattern will continue all summer unless something changes. I see how Dave has been shifting parenting responsibilities to me while maintaining his social life separately. What hurts most is the double standard. He expects me to cancel work commitments for his kids, but his poker nights are non-negotiable. A quick note, many commenters suggested I document everything I do for the boys versus what Dave does, to have evidence of the imbalance when we talk. That advice is helpful, and I've decided to track every parenting responsibility I handle versus Dave for the next week. I've started a note in my phone where I track who makes meals, who helps with homework, who drives them places, who disciplines them, who cleans up after them. After one day, it's already revealing. I handled all of yesterday's parenting tasks. Today looks the same. Dave texted this morning saying he'd be home around noon, but it's now 3 p.m. and still no sign of him. The boys are watching TV, and I'm here typing this update, wondering what my next move should be. I don't want to jump straight to ultimatums or counseling, though many of you suggested both, but I also can't keep going like this. The thought of handling the entire summer this way is overwhelming. I love Dave, but I'm starting to question whether he respects me or if he just wanted a convenient live-in babysitter for his kids. When we got married, he promised we'd be partners in parenting, but that's not how it's playing out. I deserve better than this, and so do his kids. They need a father who's present and engaged, not just when it's convenient. Thank you again for your support. It helps to know I'm not alone, and your suggestions have given me concrete steps to take moving forward. Now, for the second update. Update 2. Poker nights, parenting, and my breaking point. I thought my last update about my husband Dave's poker nights versus my step-parenting duties would be the final one, but more happened. Here's what's going on now. It's been 3 weeks since my last post, and things have gotten worse. After the conversation about Dave's "real mothers make sacrifices" comment and Jason's orientation, I started documenting everything as many of you suggested. Thanks for that advice. It's been useful, but also depressing. I've kept detailed notes on every parenting task I handle versus what Dave does when the boys are here. The results confirmed my suspicion. I handle about 80% of childcare tasks when the boys are with us. Meals, homework help, discipline. It all falls on me, even though Dave is their father. Meanwhile, he's not only kept his poker nights, but has started staying overnight more often. He says the 40-minute drive is too far when he's tired. My work performance is suffering. Last week, my boss asked if things were okay at home because I seemed distracted and less focused. I almost broke down in her office. I've worked hard for this promotion, and now it might slip away because I'm effectively a single parent 3 days a week. Today is Tuesday, another poker night, and I'm at home with the boys after leaving work early because Ethan said he was sick at summer camp. I was preparing for a major presentation when I got the call, and Dave couldn't be reached. So I had to stop what I was doing and pick him up. Ethan didn't look sick when I got him. He became more energetic when I mentioned ice cream on the way home. Not my finest moment, but I needed some calm. At home, he still had plenty of energy while I tried to join an important conference call. About 20 minutes into that call, I heard a crash and yelling from the living room. I muted myself and went to see what was happening. Jason and Ethan were fighting. They'd knocked over furniture, and Ethan was crying and holding his arm. I stepped between them to separate them, and Jason shoved me. He shoved me hard and told me to stay out of it. He showed anger and did not show me respect. I told Jason to go to his room and checked on Ethan's arm, which had a bruise. Jason went to the couch, grabbed the remote, and turned the TV volume up. He ignored me. My phone rang, my work call trying to reconnect, but I couldn't join it with all the chaos. That client relationship I'd spent months building is probably damaged now. With my professional credibility at risk and a teenager who'd pushed me, I called Dave. I could hear poker chips and music in the background. He was playing poker while I dealt with this. When I explained, he said, "Boys fight. Just separate them and tell them to knock it off." I said he needed to come home, and he said he was in the middle of a game and couldn't leave. He told me I wasn't handling a simple sibling argument. After he hung up, I felt I couldn't continue. 3 weeks of documented neglect, months of resentment, and this. I was done being the default babysitter for kids who didn't respect me and a husband who didn't respect my needs or career. I called the boy's mother. We've been cordial, but not close. I explained the situation and asked if she could take the boys early this week since the current arrangement wasn't working. She agreed. She said Dave had done this before their marriage. She was relieved when he married me because she expected better supervision. She picked up the boys within the hour. Jason barely acknowledged me. Ethan was confused but cooperative. Neither asked why they were leaving early. After they left, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and wrote an email to Dave. I listed 3 weeks of parenting imbalance, the impact on my career, the disrespect from the boys, his abdication of his responsibilities, and how this affects our marriage. I told him something needed to change immediately. I can't continue living like this. I deserve a partner who sees me as an equal, not a childcare provider. His sons deserve a father who's present and engaged. If he can't be that person, we need to reevaluate custody in our marriage. After sending the email, I packed an overnight bag and drove to my sister's house. I needed space to think without worrying that Dave would come home angry. My sister saw me and hugged me without questions. I've never been more grateful. I'm typing this from her guest room, unsure what happens next. Dave has called 14 times since I sent the email, but I'm not ready to talk. He needs to read and process what I wrote before we talk again. Eat it. My inbox is full. Thanks for the support and advice. To clarify, yes, I've considered counseling and will suggest it. No, this isn't the first time Dave chose poker over family, but it's the worst. Jason has pushed me before, but never this aggressively. I love those boys and want what's best for them, but enabling Dave's absence isn't helping. They need their father to be present, not just when it's convenient. I'm drained from Dave's neglect and the boys' behavior, but I'll post a final update when this is resolved. Now for the final update. Final update. The aftermath of my husband choosing poker over parenting. Wow, can't believe it's been 6 weeks since everything went down. First off, thank you to everyone who's followed this saga and offered advice. Your support kept me sane during one of the hardest periods of my marriage. I'm writing this from our living room, which feels significant considering I wasn't sure I'd ever move back in after that night at my sister's place. After sending that email to Dave and ignoring his 14 calls, I finally passed out on my sister's guest bed around 3 a.m. The next morning, I woke up to 27 texts from Dave. They started angry. How could you call my ex without talking to me first? Then slowly transitioned to concerned, please just let me know you're safe. And finally remorseful, I'm so sorry, I see what I've been doing. I didn't respond to any of them. I needed time to think without his voice in my head. My sister made coffee and sat with me on her porch. She didn't push for details, just offered me space to process. Around noon, Dave texted that he was outside my sister's house. I wasn't ready to see him yet, but my sister offered to talk to him first. She came back in after about 15 minutes, looking impressed. He's actually really upset, she told me. Not the fake upset guys do when they're in trouble, but genuinely rattled. He's got your email printed out with parts highlighted. That wasn't what I expected. I agreed to talk to him on the porch while my sister stayed inside as backup. When I walked out, Dave immediately tried to hug me, but I stepped back. Dave placed my printed email on the porch table. It was covered in highlights and notes. He'd basically turned my email into a study guide. I read this 17 times, he said. I didn't sleep. I just kept reading it. He told me that after I left, he went home and found my documentation journal. Seeing all the meals prepared, homework supervised, discipline handled, rides given, while his column basically showed poker night over and over, hit him harder than he expected. Dave admitted he'd been furious at first about me calling his ex. He saw it as going behind his back, but then she called him later that night and criticized him about his history of dodging parenting duties. She told him she'd enabled this behavior during their marriage and regretted it and wasn't going to watch it happen again. She said she was actually relieved when I married you because she thought you'd make me step up, Dave told me. Instead, I just transferred all the responsibility to you without the authority to handle it. I didn't say anything. I'd been carrying these feelings for a long time. Dave said he'd called his poker buddies and told them he wouldn't be joining them on Mondays or Tuesdays anymore. He then spent the whole night thinking about what kind of father and husband he'd become. I told him I appreciated the realizations, but that words weren't enough anymore. We needed professional help if we were going to fix this. To my surprise, Dave immediately agreed to couples counseling. This from a man who once said therapy was just paying someone to tell you you're right. Over the next few days, I stayed at my sister's while Dave moved back into our house with the boys. He took 3 days off work, something he'd never done for family reasons before, and focused solely on parenting. He sent me updates, but didn't pressure me to come home. Our first counseling appointment was the following week. Dave picked me up from my sister's, and we drove there in silence. I brought my documentation folder. The counselor, a calm woman named Dr. Chen, asked us each to describe the situation from our perspectives. Dave spoke first, and I braced myself for the minimizing and excuses. But instead, he gave an honest assessment, admitting he'd been treating me like a convenient babysitter rather than a partner. He acknowledged prioritizing poker over parenting and dismissing my concerns. Then it was my turn. I walked through everything: the increasing burden, Dave's dismissiveness, Jason shoving me, and Dave refusing to come home. Throughout my explanation, Dave kept nodding, occasionally looking down at his hands. When I mentioned the "real mothers make sacrifices" comment, he winced. Dr. Chen was direct with Dave. She asked pointed questions about why he thought it was appropriate to leave his children with someone they didn't fully respect as an authority figure, especially after I'd expressed discomfort. Dave started to say something about deserving time for himself, but then stopped mid-sentence. "That's not it," he said. "The truth is, I've been avoiding the harder parts of parenting. It's easier to be the fun weekend dad than to deal with homework and discipline and teenage attitudes." Dr. Chen nodded. "And why do you think it's fair for your wife to handle those difficult aspects while you get to be the fun dad?" Dave didn't have an answer. The remainder of the session focused on establishing boundaries and expectations for our blended family. Dr. Chen gave us homework, creating a parenting schedule with equitable distribution of responsibilities and brainstorming ways for Dave to build his parenting authority without undermining mine. The drive home was quiet until Dave suddenly pulled into an ice cream shop parking lot. He turned to me with tears in his eyes. "I don't deserve you," he said. "I've been taking advantage of your kindness and work ethic. I've been a terrible husband and a mediocre father at best." We spent the next hour in that parking lot, talking more honestly than we had in months. Dave admitted he'd fallen into patterns from his first marriage, where his ex eventually gave up asking him to participate equally in parenting. He realized he was on track to having the same distant relationship with his sons that his father had with him. Over the next few weeks, things started changing. Dave rearranged his work schedule to be home by 4:30 p.m. on boy days. He completely dropped poker on weeknights and limited himself to one Saturday a month when we don't have the boys. He started doing homework checks, enforcing screen time limits, and taking the lead on discipline. The boys noticed the change immediately. Jason was resistant at first, testing boundaries and trying to play us against each other. But Dave addressed it firmly, making it clear that I had full parental authority in our home. The first time Ethan ignored my request to clean his room, Dave stepped in and supported me fully. We're still in counseling. Our 5th session is tomorrow, and we've had some setbacks. Habits are hard to break, and there have been moments when Dave has slipped into his old patterns. But the difference now is that he catches himself or accepts it immediately when I point it out. The biggest change came last week when Jason had a basketball tournament that conflicted with a major work presentation I couldn't reschedule. In the past, Dave would have expected me to figure it out. Instead, he took the day off without me even asking and told me, "You focus on your presentation. I'll handle things." I'm not naive enough to think everything is fixed. Trust takes longer to rebuild than 6 weeks. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like we're partners. The boys are responding to the consistency, my work performance is recovering, and Dave and I are communicating better than we have in years. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I'm actually grateful it happened. Sometimes a crisis is needed to create a stronger foundation. Cheesy, but true in this case. Edit. Several people asked about the boys' mom. She and I now have coffee once a month to check in about the boys and coordinate approaches. It's been unexpectedly helpful to have an ally who understands exactly what I've been dealing with. Also, Davis started reading parenting books, voluntarily, and found a dad support group at the boys' school. Small steps, but important ones.